Thank you. Let the record show that all members of the board are present tonight. I'd like to start off with communications. Any agenda items that people would like to come up and make a comment about, you're welcome. Come up, state your name, and you can ask a question or make a statement. No one? Okay, great. So let's move right into the next section of the board meeting, which is finance. Could I get a motion to accept the warrants that have been submitted to us by Mr. Clanzer?
So
Second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, we'll go right into the approval of the minutes. The first approval of minutes is December 8th. That meeting, Mrs. Caputo and Mrs. Masafra were not present, so I'd like to get a motion to accept the minutes. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Lucy, you abstain? Okay, thank you. Any no votes? Thank you. Next is the minutes of December 9th. Absent was Mrs. Caputo and Mrs. Masafra. Could I get a motion to accept those minutes, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Abstentions? Okay. Mrs. Masafra and Mrs. Caputo. Any no votes? Thank you. Last but not least, approval of the minutes of January 6th. Absent were Mr. Bellows and Mr. Pikowski. Could I get a motion to accept those minutes, please?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, Mr.
Abstain.
Okay, 2 abstentions, Mr. Pikowski and Mr. Bellows. Any no votes? Thank you. Let's move right on to our student most president's report.
Hi.
Hi.
I hope you guys all had a late holiday. Everything's starting to be nice. I wanted to thank the PTO for the $2,500 that they gave to most. And most had collected toys for tots. And we also collected we also collected room assignments for our Boston trip, and we'll be collecting our final deposits on payment shortly. We have a winter concert tonight, and tryouts for our spring musical were held for Legally Blonde. And I wanted to let you guys know about our most committees that we have this year. We decided to separate kids in most from all the different grade levels into committees, and each committee, we have a senior lounge committee, we have a fundraising committee, we have a library committee, and I just want to say that they're all making great progress. They've been having meetings with our administrators, with people that they need to talk to about rules. I know one of our problems that we're facing is fundraising in clubs for the school, because we're no longer able to have pizza sales and breakfast sales in the morning. So that committee is doing a lot of work, but I just wanted to recognize them.
Great, thank you. Terrific job with the Toys for Tots. I heard that was a big success. Okay, let's move on to the superintendent report.
Before our student trustee leaves, I thought I would embarrass her a little bit. Dr. Pease called me the other day to tell me that Catherine Bensberg has received the Comcast Leaders and Achievers Scholarship for her service, and based on what we see here, it looks
Congratulations.
I'd also like to report that the Center for the Advancement of Education, which comes out of City University of New York, has contacted me and indicated that we are among a small number of school districts has been selected to participate in a research study on best practices in education based on the fact, and these are their words, that so many of our students meet and exceed the state standards in English language arts and mathematics. So that is certainly positive. Also like to report that for those of you who come to visit central office, I don't know why anyone ever would, But if you chose to, you will now notice that on a rotating basis, we will have the artwork of students in the district showcased. At the present time, we have an exhibit by Sharon Tobin called The Spirit of the First Americans, which is actually put up by fifth graders from Fulmer Road, so you'll see their work in central office, and that will rotate throughout this and future school years. On a much different note, I want to share what I shared with the board last night, and we'll actually share with the community tomorrow, that we have had a troubling report from the Carmel basketball game about a week ago about clearly inappropriate comments that may have been made at that game. All I can tell you now is that is being investigated by both Carmel and by Mayapack, and I've been in touch with the superintendent. We are certainly taking that seriously. I've sent an email to the community letting them know about it. I think you'll probably see something in the Journal News in the next couple of days as well, so we will work through that. I'd also like to report to the board, I know this has been a priority of yours, that we will have our first evening coffee with the counselors, which is now rescheduled due to a snow day, but it will be January 21st at 7 p.m. I know the board has been anxious to have that happen because we do those in the morning and they're very successful, but for some people it's not possible. So we'll have one in the evening and hopefully that will go well. I don't know if they're serving decaf or what. I'd also like to report that a community blood drive is scheduled at Lakeview for January 29th from 3 to 7. And this announcement actually makes me happy. In my former life, I was an English teacher. I had a great reverence for the written word, the spoken word. And I would urge you on Saturday, January 31st at 2 p.m. to go to the Mayapack Public Library. They have a series of authors that read from their work, talk about their work, talk about what it means to be an author. And it's a real honor, I think, for the middle school and for the Mayapack School District to recognize that the novel The Outhouse has been published and a second novel is on its way. And I invited the author of both of those books to come and just be recognized this evening. And he is Dave Gordon, a social studies teacher from the middle school. And then finally, this is a result of the superintendent keeps screwing up and calling snow days when there's no snow, and the calendar's all messed up. We had planned to have a number of students here tonight to kind of present to the board, because our procedure is when we have a new club, that about midway through the first year of that club, the members come and present. That club is Jazz Band 2, but as you heard, there was a concert tonight. Actually, Stas and I were just up there briefly, and so those students who would have been here are up at the concert. But I'm glad that Steve Wands, who is one of our teachers and their leader, is here to give you a mid-year update on Jazz Band 2.
Hello, my name is Steve Wands. I'm the director of Jazz Band 2. This group was formed out of necessity because there was such an interest in jazz at the high school that we felt the need to form a second band, which is a good problem to have. The band performs at all the concerts. Our next performance is going to be at the Small Ensembles concert on February 2nd. We practice every Monday night at the high school from 6:30 until 8. And I prepared a short video just to show you exactly what we do.
Okay, let's move on to the committee reports. We'll start with Mr. Bellows.
Thank you, Mr. President. Buildings and Grounds met on January 5th in a brief agenda. The committee met with the two architectural firms to represent our interests as a district. We met with Samuel Architecture from Kisco and Tetra Tech Architects and Engineers based out of Albany and Massachusetts. After interviewing the two firms, the committee opted to go with Tetra Tech Architects and Engineers to be representing the district for future projects and 5-year plans, etc. We discussed an update on the Lakeview Water Storage Tank project, in which the Board of Health approved plans for what is taking place. There was pardon my voice. There was a discussion on the public use of the track during school hours, which was brought up by the district school district safety committee. This is going to be going back to the committee for future discussion. Mr. Kuzminski was at our meeting to discuss the high school auditorium sound system, which needs a little bit of assistance. And he provided us with pricing, and he is able to get some funding in the form from Friends of Music, Friends of Drama, and the Mayapack Education Foundation. And there needs more discussion in the future regarding this as well. We'll talk about it at our next committee meeting. And we also have a further discussion regarding, a brief discussion regarding our Secor Academy building. And Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you. Mrs. Caputo.
The Technology Committee met on December 17th and discussed a number of our ongoing projects. So I'm just going to give you a couple highlights. As always, we invite folks to come to those Technology Committee meetings the third Wednesday of every month. Some highlights are that we are continuing to work on the requirements for the Smart Bond Act. There is some work that needs to be done for BOCES so that they can help us, but we're preparing an inventory of all of the district's assets in regards to technology. We're having BOCES help us with that. Another thing that I wanted to point out, and I don't know if folks noticed, but our statistics, our BOE meeting statistics, have been posted to the website. With that, you can see the number of people who join our meeting remotely, live, as well as the number of people who download our video after the meeting to watch. And so those numbers help us to know that we are providing a great service in videotaping these meetings and having it available for folks to watch at their leisure. Last big thing or highlight that I'm going to discuss is the online registrations that are on target for September 2015, so that new students in the district can go online to register. So there are a number of other items that we can discuss. Our meeting minutes will be posted once approved to the district website, so feel free to go ahead and download those, read them, and send us any questions. And come to our meeting. Next one scheduled is Wednesday, the 21st. We're trying to arrange to have that meeting start at 6 o'clock p.m. versus the usual time of 7. Okay? That concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. King.
The curriculum committee was due to meet December 23rd. We did not meet.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Mancuso.
First of all, I would like to welcome our new Assistant Superintendent of Pupil Personnel Services, Dr. Gregory Stoll. He's officially on board, so thank you, replacing Ms. Raymond. Our special education department is very thrilled and honored to have him. We know we'll have a lot of wonderful things ahead for our students. And our meeting is scheduled tomorrow at 6:30. We did not meet this month. Thank you.
Policy, we did not meet in December, and unfortunately, because of the inclement weather this week, we were supposed to meet this evening, and we should be meeting next week. So unfortunately, I do not have a report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Zimmer?
Transportation and the Communication Committee did not meet in December. Our next meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday, the 20th, so I encourage all that are interested in learning about transportation and what we're doing in the district to join us for that meeting at 7:30 at the district office. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that we'd like to remove from the consent agenda to read or to discuss? I will point out letter H, which is a donation. We'll read that. Anything else from anyone? Okay. Yes, sir. 6-3.
Oh, sorry, it's,
I think you're pointing to 6-2, resignation? 6A2. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So 6A2, that's actually one of the things that I was going to point out. Mr. John Wilson, our building maintenance supervisor, will be leaving us at the end of January 30th. And as the board would like to thank him for his years of dedication and always being there for our community and our district. And we'd like to wish him well in his new ventures. He's moving closer to home to be with his family, which is something we totally understand. So we wish him well and we thank him for an extraordinary job. Okay. The other item was H. Somebody want to read H? Lucy, want to read H? National Junior Honor Society donation.
Resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education of the Mapac Central School District accept the donation of a tree to be planted in a location to be determined on the middle school property from the National Junior Honor Society. Thank you.
Okay. With nothing else, could I get a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any no votes, any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Quick look here, make sure we got everything covered. Consent agenda, okay. Would anybody like to come up and make any comments before we close the meeting? Okay. Please state your name, please. Thank you. I don't think so.
No?
Oh,
You can? Okay, thank you. My name's Roger Bell. Just had a couple of questions. I wasn't at the last meeting. I know it was addressed briefly. Is there any update or any kind of an outline as far as what's going on with the superintendent's search?
We are in the process of interviewing additional candidates. We have 5 right now that we're interviewing in this batch. We've interviewed 2. We have 2 more tomorrow night and 1 more next week. And then we'll be bringing people back for a second interview.
Okay. Now, is the format going to stay the same as it was in the fall, where the candidates will be, I guess the final 3, if I remember correctly, were brought before a committee of various people from, you know, the school community, and then you would have the final Meet the Candidates night?
Correct.
With two
It's-
finalists?
Correct. What will probably happen is it probably won't be 3 because we're dealing with 5. I would think it's probably going to be 2, and 2 go to that committee, and then 2 will go to meet the candidates.
Okay. The only other thing,
If we get to that point, yeah.
If we get to that.
We haven't interviewed everybody yet.
okay. I'd like to just ask quickly, because like I said, I wasn't here last time, but I think there was a lot of frustration with how the process kind of fizzled out, in the fall. There was basically a Meet the Candidates night was set up for, I believe, Wednesday, I forget the date, in November. And it was basically just canceled, or it was announced on the website that it was canceled that morning. There was no message that went out. There was no explanation. The public was kind of kept in the dark until really the Mahopac News contacted you and asked for an explanation. And, I'm just wondering, why that couldn't have been put out by the board itself before the Mahopac News had to question it. Whenever there's any other announcement, Dr. Monahan is usually very quick to get information out to the community. But when you have a very important event like a Meet the Candidates night, there's no email, there's no contact. It's people either saw it on the website, or if they didn't check, maybe they showed up. I don't know. And it kind of leads to some frustration. And then there's no announcement from the board, no explanation from the board until the Mahopac News article. And we've talked about this in the past before about communication, staying in touch with the public, and I quite frankly think the board dropped the ball on that.
Well, I can tell you that the process is that the board is supposed to make the decision. The courtesy that we're giving the community to meet the candidates is just that, a courtesy. The committee meeting the candidates is that, a courtesy. This board is the group that makes the decision. We had an opinion of the candidates. We had a candidate drop out the day of the meeting with the committee because he accepted another job in another district. So we were down to 1 candidate, and we weren't comfortable presenting 1 candidate to the community.
Which, that's fine, Mike, but that still could have been communicated to the community. That's basically my point. If that was your thought process and that's where the board stood at that point, that could have gone out in an email just to let everybody know instead of kind of waiting, a week later or whatever it was for the Mahopac News article to come out.
But again, the community knowing that is a courtesy. This is a decision that's made by this board. This does not have to go out to the public in any way or form. This board, whoever sits on this board, makes that decision. So, we can Monday morning quarterback everything we do. We've been scrambling and meeting 3 and 4 nights a week to try to accommodate candidates and try to get the job done. If it meant that we didn't go out with a communication, it was because the candidate dropped out that morning and we didn't have time to communicate anything.
Well, according to the article, and they're quoting you, and maybe I'm wrong, the candidate dropped out a week before the meet.
That's absolutely wrong.
That's what it says in the newspaper.
That's absolutely
So then you were
wrong.
misquoted.
He dropped out the day of the meeting with the committee, that morning.
Which was what day?
Excuse me.
Was it the Monday before the Meet
No,
the
it was
Candidates?
But that's, the point I guess that Mike's trying to make is that you have things from news sources that the town takes as gospel, and the board could say something, but they're going to believe the newspaper. So what we're trying to say is this board here was elected to pick a superintendent and present a budget, and we try and give the courtesy to the community to get involved as a committee. But that is a courtesy. Our job is to get a superintendent. And based on timing, we cannot guarantee that it will go through committee. Our ideal would be to have 2 candidates come and meet the public like we did the last time. But right now, we're on certain time constraints. Other districts are looking for superintendents. So we're not going to be held right now, is the community meeting them? When are they meeting them? Or when are we going to know? Because we have the job to do first and foremost is to get a wonderful superintendent for our community, and sometimes time is not on our side. So ideally, we would love to do that, but we cannot guarantee it. Our job as sitting elected officials is to pick the superintendent.
I absolutely understand that.
So please understand that, because it seems that the board
The
keeps...
issue is that This board has bent over backwards trying to over-communicate and communicate with everything, where in the past, boards have not communicated anything. So if the ball gets dropped on one particular item or a meeting is canceled, it's because there's not enough time. We're trying to deal with 9 people who have families and have careers and are trying to do this, you know, to meet with superintendents, to meet with candidates, to meet with identification firms. We've made a wholesale change to many key positions in this district. And right now, we want to make sure that we pick the right candidate, to have people sitting in the audience questioning whether we're the proper candidate is ridiculous. We've been elected by this community to do the job.
And I don't think I was questioning
No,
whether
I'm
you
just
were
saying, this is
the
what-
individual.
This is what we get
Okay.
Monday morning quarterback on every single thing we do. Everything. And you cannot please everybody all the time. It's impossible. It's impossible. There's a certain amount of window that you're able to work with.
Mhm.
And this board has gone out of their way, and I commend everybody on this board to put aside their personal lives, to put aside other commitments they've had, to address this concern, because we all feel very strongly that this is a key position in this district, if not the most important position in this district. So we're trying to do our best to do that.
Right, and I absolutely agree, and I'll just leave it at this. Rather than wait for or have the media outlets or Facebook or somebody else set that agenda or talk about it, my suggestion would be, if something was put out, the Meet the Candidates nights has been canceled. This is simply why it's been canceled, and just leave it at that, rather than wait for somebody else to set.
The problem you have with that is, as soon as you put out a little bit of information, you'll get 900 questions back. Well, why did this happen? Why did the person leave? Then the next question is, and the question that I got from the media was, did this person leave because they didn't like working with the board? It had nothing to do with that. But it's a constant attack. A constant attack. It's always, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this. We're doing the best we can with what we have.
Right.
We're trying to fix a multitude of problems that we've had in this district. And we're addressing each one with the utmost concern. And if we missed sending out an email, okay, I'll take the hit for that. That's not a problem. But the point is, we're not going to just put forth the candidate because that's the person that kind of ended up in that position. That's not what we want.
And we
We're
will,
going to get the right person for the right job.
and that's what we will do.
Right, and I'm happy with that. I don't want to settle for, a superintendent that, is not satisfactory. But like I said, I personally would like just a little more information with the process and where it's at. If we got a little bit here and there just to let us know where we're progressing, I think it would at least keep everybody in the loop, and I think it would be helpful. If you feel otherwise, you feel otherwise, but that's my personal opinion. The more you communicate with the community, the less there's going to be of those questions that it's cloaked in secrecy, that it's, stuff like that.
There is no secrecy. Let's stop
But,
that right
I
there.
mean-
Because this always comes up, and it gets to a point where things are said to try and create drama and secrecy. Sometimes we're over-transparent, and those that have a different agenda try to get an aha moment. And it gets to a point where we try and do the right thing, and it's never enough. So at the end of the day, this board will pick the superintendent. It may or may not go to committee based on time constraints. They will see the two candidates, and that will be it. Because the most important thing is that we pick the right superintendent. That's what we're elected to do, and that's what we will do. And the newspapers can say what they want. We know we sit here. We are all ethical individuals. We give 110%. We're here late at night doing the right thing for the community because that's what we want to do.
You can ask anyone on this board. We got chastised in the press, and this is why we're not talking to the press anymore, because you say something to them and they twist it. We got chastised in the press that the process was flawed. We dropped the ball.
It's not
The
true.
process was not flawed.
And
The
that-
process worked exactly the way it was supposed to work. You can ask anybody on this board that read that article. We were furious. There was no unprofessional manner or no unprofessional conduct. That was a ridiculous statement. The point is, we're trying to do the best for the district. Our kids are in the school just like your kids are in the school. We're trying to do the best we can with what we have. That's it. And if we miscommunicated that one night, I apologize for that. We
Okay.
miscommunicated that.
Thank you, appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Anybody else? As you can see, the frustration level is getting high because we're bending over backwards to do what the community wants. This board has done more of what the community has suggested than any board in the past. And we'll continue to try to do our best. Okay? Anybody else? Okay, can I get a motion to close the meeting,
So
please?
moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.